Parenting for the Everyday, a podcast dedicated to meeting parents in the trenches of parenthood. We explore how our faith fits into our parenting. With the help of our guests, we are seeking practical tips on how the gospel can speak into our day-to-day parenting. From the easy stuff to the hard stuff, we want to talk about it all. This is Parenting for the Everyday. I'm Becca Alvarez.
And I'm Holly Dyke-Andrew.
And today we're talking about a topic that is so near and dear to my heart. We are talking about body image. And before I introduce our guest, I want to go through a little bit of kind of the reason we started with this topic. I saw an Instagram video recently, and it said the following things. Age 6 is the age when girls start wishing to be thinner. By age 10, 80% of girls have been on a diet. By age 13, 50% are unhappy in their body. And by age 17, that number goes up to 80%. So clearly, there's something going on with our body image. We have one of my very favorite people in this world in our studio today.
No pressure.
Christy Mitchell. Christy, will you just introduce yourself, tell us your role at the church, and then talk to us a little bit about body image?
That's one of my favorite people right there, too. And I'm not just saying that. I'm Christy Mitchell. I work at the church as the sports director. And this topic is near and dear to my heart, not only because I have a daughter, I also have two sons that I feel like can also be aligned with, and we'll talk about that. And I've been a coach for 29 years and have been involved in many young ladies' lives and struggles and conversations. And just feel like I could talk about this for a long time.
Well, it's interesting, Beck. I feel like we've been talking about doing this episode for a while because it is so prevalent and something that comes up in everybody's household. So, Christy, I'm really excited to dive in and kind of break it down as parents and as moms and all the things of how we lead each other well and how we lead our kids well through this complicated topic. So we could just start with what are the main things that influence a child's body image? So when we think of that statistic where you said by age 6, you're starting to notice your own body, what are things that make those statistics get so much worse as you get older?
Gosh, I think comparison and the amount of things that we are just watching on TV and watching on social media. They're also so absorbent. They're sponges as they're growing, so they're listening and watching and comparing. And I think it's really hard. And I know we're not just talking about females, but for kids to always compare what that kid has compared to what I have. And a lot of times that goes right to comparisons and what they look like. And as they are sponges and as they are learning, they're also learning from sources that create that negativity. And all the things that we are doing as parents to try to block that, I think it's an ongoing conversation that I'm excited for the questions that you're going to ask to dive deeper into it and to hear from what you guys have to say. So it can't be all what I have to say. But yeah, I think it's just all the outside influences as they're growing and absorbing and listening and watching.
Yeah, I would imagine social media makes it so complicated because you're seeing images of people that are not real, but when you're at such a young age, you can't filter what's real and not real. So I imagine that is going to be a huge topic of conversation too.
It's interesting too, just with the topic of body image, it goes so much deeper than it seems like other things. Like I remember the very first time someone called me fat because I was very young, but I don't remember other critiques that I got at a young age,
yeah.
But that one, I remember where I was. I remember all of those things. So it's an interesting thing. There's something about body image that hits a different layer of the human being. And I think that's why it's so important. And that's also why it's so sticky because there's a lot of different kind of levels of unhealth in body image.
Yeah. Would you say it's tied deeper to your identity maybe than some other things that people would say?
Yeah. I think so. Like me personally?
No, I don't mean you personally. I just mean in general.
Yeah, I think in general, I think it is. I think it's just something that we have enough control to change, but not all the control to change. So I don't know if it's that kind of psychology. I don't know what it is that makes that one so particularly kind of sticky for people.
So how do we combat the noise that we're identifying that they're hearing from their friends or that they're seeing with their eyes? How as parents in our house do we combat that noise. Well, actually, let's go back. We talked about it a little bit, but this is not just a girl issue. I feel like we should say that from the front. This is also a boy issue.
Absolutely.
You would agree?
Oh yeah. Well, even just going back to what you just said with identity, I think it's 100% in line with identity. Like everybody spends their whole life redefining and searching what their identity is. And when kids think, oh gosh, my identity is how I look, it's also how strong I am. So masculinity is a huge part with boys just trying to figure out how masculine they are in comparison. It might be different than females in what they're struggling, but they absolutely struggle in a different type of comparison. And I should be this fast. I should be this tall.
I said tall.
Yeah, height
is
huge.
So hard.
Yeah.
And what can you control in that?
Right.
There's
Nothing.
there's so many pieces. And like you just said, I think what's so hard is a lot of it is out of our control. And why it becomes issues is the piece it is maybe in our control is what gets unhealthy. Because if we then go to diets or we get to, that's when the girls especially, start hurting themselves because I can control this piece. But how much of our identity can we really control? And are we supposed to control, right? So when you said a couple different things, because when Becca, you said that you remember the negative, that one thing that was told to you. How old were you, do you think?
Oh man, I might have been 6.
Okay.
Because I was in a daycare.
Wow.
And you remember.
Wow.
I was in Life Center daycare.
Well, interesting enough, I do teach at the University of Akron, and we were just talking about this yesterday, that did you know, and I'm not trying to pretend like I understand brain chemistry, but your brain takes longer to break down negative stimuli than it does positive stimuli. So when you hear something negative, your brain spends a lot of time breaking that down. Like, I wonder why. What did I do? Why did they say this? I wonder what I need to do to make it better. When someone says something positive, it makes you feel good, and then it goes away because you don't have to think about it. So when, mine was about coaches, but when coaches say something negative to kids, even if it's a one-off, the probability of them remembering that one negative thing that you said to them for the rest of their life is really high. And to think about that as parents, like we get grumpy, we get tired, and we say things, and unfortunately the probability of our kid remembering that is way higher than the millions of times we try to tell them, hey, you look great, hey, I'm so proud of you, you were so smart, you're so, all the positive things is obviously important, but it's just interesting that you said that, because I do believe that's what causes a lot of the self-image is that maybe one negative comment, and then we can't think of the tons of positives that go through it because our brain's still stuck on that one piece. So you said, what do we do as parents? We should probably hone in on that and remember, oh man, I got to be really careful with my words, like really careful with my words. And just thinking about what is my communication about body, about food, about height, about athleticism, about, all the comparisons that I accidentally bring into conversations at home, to just check ourselves and to think, do I say, oh my gosh, I need to lose weight? Or, ooh, I can't eat that. I had too much at lunch. Or all the things that we might not think about saying, your kids are listening.
And you're not even talking about negative comments to your kids. You're talking about negative comments about yourself in front of your kids.
Just any words that the kids are absorbing that come from us. It's just we just have to think about it and check where we're thinking too. Like if I am worried about image, which we're human, so we all, I understand that with body image, it goes directly to maybe an eating disorder. That's what I think. Body image is really just comparing yourselves and not being set in who God created you to be, right? So I love Psalm 139. I'm sure you guys have said it a million times into this podcast, and how it says you're knit together. Fun fact, and I'm sure you've maybe heard this before. A knitter doesn't just go knit, 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 not looking and go, oh my gosh, I made a sock. Or oh my gosh, I made a sweater. They know what they're making. They're proud of it. And for us to judge the creator in what they created, we're not focusing in on what they were trying to make in us and being proud and being, feeling like, oh, I am special and I am unique. And I was knit, which means I was created. And focusing on that piece as parents, letting that be constantly part of our verbiage that we talk to the kids about. And I think, just honing in on how individual everybody is. Right? Like how cool is that? Totally tangent. Like how neat is that we are all so stinking different? Sometimes you can find, your doppelganger. I won't ask you who you guys think my doppelganger is, but how special that is to, hone in on that with your kids is like, do you see anybody that looks identical? No.
Well,
Because
you
we're
do,
all-
because you have twins.
Oh, identical.
My twins are not identical, but that's a different.
Yeah, that is so special. And I think that your point, Christy, is so important to make as parents because I think that one, just in general, we tend to be so much meaner to ourselves than we are to anyone else. But when you have precious little ears and precious little eyes around you all the time, the stakes are higher. And so even if you think that you are making some comment about yourself that's really not going to harm anyone but yourself, you're also teaching them that this is what we think of ourselves. This is the pattern in which that we talk about ourselves. And these are the things that are important, So I think that something that we say so often is just having a plan in parenting and being intentional in parenting. And I think the plan goes here. You have to be intentional. You have to do kind of outside healing at different times if you're having some issues with body image, if you can't find the positive about yourself, because your kids are worth it for you to heal yourself and get a better body image because you want them to have that.
So are we talking about the kids here or no? Exactly. Like that's
I'm taking it all
twofold,
in.
right? Absorb it all. Like what are we saying? What are we thinking? What are we acting? What are we teaching?
Well, and I was even thinking like, what am I saying when I, without even words? Like, what am I saying when I get ready? Or, I don't know, like when my daughter's in the room and I am putting on all my makeup, it's like, what am I saying with, why do I need to wear that? What do I want to look like? And just being intentional in those conversations, as she gets older and starts to think about what she wants to do with her body and stuff.
Now, Christy, coming from the sports world, I'm sure you saw kind of a whole different kind of level of body image stuff because you are getting into the athleticism and the strength and the needing to perform well, needing to have this body perform well. What was that like?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting kind of what we were just talking about, the individuality of just how we're created. It's the same with athletes. Like, of course, you have a common goal of wanting to be good at this, wanting to be good at this, but you also have to find the strengths of what your body can do well and what you can do well and what you can bring to the team. And it's important for a coach to not try to make everybody be Johnny, right? But to make sure that we are trying to make their individual strengths a good thing for the team. I mean, that goes, it's probably another podcast, but that goes with, the number one performer and maybe the one that's still, riding the bench a little bit, but may be impacting the team more than the one that's scoring. So just finding all those individual spots and, how to make the team unique with what was given to them individually, I guess. So I don't know if that's what you mean by the sports world, but there's comparisons, like you just said, with height and with, we could be doing the same thing, eating the same thing, but why is Johnny so much stronger? And I'm trying to pump all this, protein in me, and I can't. Why do I keep saying Johnny? I don't even know Johnny.
I don't know, but Johnny's a great athlete.
Johnny's
thus far.
obviously what everybody wants
Johnny's
to be.
killing it.
Johnny is killing it. But just that comparison of why can't I be that person when that is not, that just takes too much of our mind space. Unfortunately, then we can't be the best form of ourselves.
So when our kids come home and they do kind of express some dissatisfaction with some part of their body, what should our response be? I mean, I don't is the answer can't be like, oh, no, you're perfect, everything,
Right.
or is
Right.
that the
Well,
answer?
I'm glad you said that because I sat on that question a little bit. And what I think we need to do is listen. Because I think I would jump to do and I've done that. Where no, you're beautiful, you're perfect. Instead of, visiting why you're feeling that way. Because I think we as parents just want to cover them with the blanket of, no, you're perfect, you're loved, which is very true. But to visit the feelings and to talk through why you're feeling that way, spend time in prayer, make sure that we aren't just, covering it with some flattery words and changing the subject. Like I think we're very guilty of changing the subject. It's funny, I was listening to something earlier that said a lot of times, we focus on the words of learn to love yourself. And of course, I agree with that. But it's really hard to say, I'm going to love this stretch mark. I'm going to love, being 4'10". I'm going to love all the comparison things when really the focus should be, do you know that you are truly loved and truly known? And like I said, knit together. Can it be a conversation of, instead of worrying about loving yourself, just know that you're loved? So can that be, part of the conversation when they come and say, I feel this, I think I look this way, to sit down and stop making dinner for a second, make eye contact, and listen, which I am just as guilty of needing to do more, but just to make sure that, we're listening and praying and pointing them in the right direction.
I love that answer because I know that that's true, and I know that we are made in God's image, but I also remember moments and times, especially in some awkward preteeny life of Miss Rebecca Coffee, of just feeling like, I know that's true, but I still don't like it, and these feelings still feel so real and so discouraging, wanting to be like, then why did he make me like this? If I'm made in God's image and I should be grateful that I'm made in God's image, then why am I not? So how do we
why are
that?
we not beautiful in the way
right,
that
in the way that
consider?
we want? Like, I want to be different.
Yeah. I mean, I think we sit in the listening part, but I think what's important is also recognizing that those feelings are very real. That, validating that it's okay to feel that way, that we're constantly going to have to manage our feelings, figure out comparisons, figuring out who we are, who God created us to be. I'm going to guess that most people listening to the podcast are believers or have been following Christ for a while. And this isn't, somebody that doesn't maybe have never heard that they are loved, maybe has never heard that they're made in God's image. And there's going to be plenty of times where maybe repeating that to a teen is going to frustrate them. But sitting with them in it and making sure that we even share you guys were talking about that we deal with it too, and share that, hey, I am in the same boat. Not that you are in, but that I'm trying to constantly figure out, hey, I don't love this part of me, and then I need to just pause, remember all the things that I do know to be true, cling to that truth, and then sit and think about my identity in him, because it's not going to be a one-word statement or, a phrase that's going to calm the teen down, and because they probably know that and have heard it 1,000 times, but to be able to sit there with them, think about it with them. Why are you feeling this way? This is a true feeling. We all go through this. You're not the only one that is going through this. And to realize that it's always been the issue, that comparison is a thief of joy. So when we compare, we are stealing our own joy that we could have in that day, and maybe a conversation about that instead of, our easy blankets that are still very, very true, but to just take the time to listen and to validate.
All right, so I'm going to switch. I'm going to move topics a little bit. I had a friend once who shared that when she was a teenager, she came to her mom and was like, hey, I'm really uncomfortable in my body. I feel like I've gained a lot of weight. I feel like I have, that I should be skinnier. And her mom's response was like, okay, well, why don't we move our body together if that's how you're feeling or whatever. And that comment haunted her, because in that moment she was like, I wish my mom would have just said, no, you look beautiful the way you are. Where I think as a parent, I was like, oh, I think I would have, that made sense. That was an answer that made sense. It's like, hey, let me build a habit to show you how to move your body and how to, but what is the line there? Where it's like, what is damaging? What is not damaging? If you have a kid who you're watching with really bad eating habits, and then they're saying hey, I don't like the way I feel in my body. Do you connect that for them? I don't know what to do.
Christy, tell us what to do.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
tell
you're going to ask
do.
me, because isn't that with everything? Our managing and our balancing, and having two teen sons and a she's a teenager daughter, and the differences in body and what they eat and what the fuel does to them. And there's so many things that I just think, again, we have to sit back, think about them individually. Because it's funny, when you first said that, I'm like, oh, how sweet. She said, I'll do it with you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, no.
And it's probably case by case.
Right,
but
It's got to be. Yeah.
But it's, then that challenges are, oh gosh, that is usually what I jump to. And I have to think about that. I have to think about making sure I listen to, why would you even think that? Who are you, let's not compare. What's the reason? Because obviously we're teaching our kids that food is fuel. Food is really yummy. Food's a gift. And if we are constantly letting that be our vocabulary, and when they say, hey, or whatever your friend said, let's move together, let's work it off together. I think there's a balance of you're right, let's take care of our bodies, but let's not do it because of somebody else. Let's do it because we want to be the best form of ourselves, because you're not ever going to be that person that you're thinking about, right? So, again, something that we can balance our way of thinking and our way of communicating, which is a constant struggle for us. So,
Yeah, I think that's good. It's like, yeah, let me show you how to build healthy habits that make you feel good, but not because you're trying to be something for someone else.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So I
good.
just want you to be the best version of you.
Yeah, and healthy in all areas,
Right.
physical, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to ask. I feel like diet culture is such a tricky thing, and wondering if there's ever an okay time to be on a diet or not, or is it just healthy eating? And if you're a parent that also needs to make lifestyle changes to be the best version of themselves, again, like how do you find the balance and how do you imitate that well so that your children will imitate that well?
don't you think the balance can even just be vocabulary too?
Yeah.
Like I love that you just said instead of saying diet, and you don't have to claim it out loud. Like maybe they notice you're grabbing that apple, or you're making different dinners or whatever.
Eating
You're
more
not
whole foods and-
vocalizing, hey, I've got to lose this much weight, or I'm doing this, or hopefully your kids see, wow, Mom, you've been hitting the treadmill a little bit. Like this, demonstrating a healthy lifestyle, and not demonstrating this wave of the word diet and eating and so I don't know if that answers what you're saying, but could it be just the way that we talk about it? Because it's okay, to want to work out more. It's okay. I mean, it's okay to want to eat healthier. But I do think that word diet, and when's it okay to diet? Like, couldn't we just maybe focus on healthy living instead of diet?
No, I think that makes
Can I
a
tell
lot
you a
of
fun
sense.
fact? I don't have a
Yeah.
scale in my house.
That's good.
Because I feel like that has always been something where it would just make it too mental. Instead of me just focusing on, I'm just going to challenge myself to eat healthy for a month and see if I feel better. And you do feel better, right? And it can't be because I'm trying to get to that jean size or whatever. Because then we know, then maybe I am creating some lingo if it was a constant. I'm seeing my mom get on the scale in the morning and at night. And what does that really do, right? If it is that one number, then we're teaching our kids that the number matters too. So
Yeah, and the funniest thing about weight is it's such a silly kind of metric to choose for us to choose. Like at this weight, I will be healthy. When we know like our body is composed of so many different things that weigh more or less.
yeah,
It's just interesting that our culture has picked that as the thing that we should measure ourselves on. On the same token of balance, is there a time that it goes too far on the other side, that you're too rigid and work out, that becomes the emphasis of everything?
it's funny. I thought you were going the other side.
What's the other
other side?
I'm going to go there next to answer this question. Yeah.
I think I know what side you're talking about. But if you're too rigid, like too much workout,
Like this is too important.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that's hard because I can struggle with that as far as looking at the week and wanting so many times a week to make sure that we're being active. And is that a balance because I just want us to be healthy, or is it because I don't love to sit still and want our bodies to be active? I don't know, but I feel like it's funny I said the other side, because I think you can be on that extreme of it's not okay to miss working out, and that is not true. And the other extreme of like, well, we don't talk about it because I don't want them to think I ever care about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. My next
Yeah.
question is like, so what happens when you see your kids having really unhealthy habits, but you don't want to bring it up because you don't want them to think that you're
Right.
saying like,
I know.
hey, you're overweight,
Yeah, it's so tricky. I think that's when the conversation of food being fuel needs to come into play, instead of food being what makes you gain weight or not gain weight, right? Because we always talk about genuinely, as in coaching, like what you put into your body translates into how you're going to perform. And so many people don't think that's true, but it's literally a form of fuel. So can that be the general, or the normal conversation of, if you eat this, this, and this, it's fine, but you're going to feel sluggish probably, and you're going to be tired. We don't translate to that. If you eat this, you're going to gain weight, right? Can our lingo maybe not just be about weight? So I can find myself in times of both of those sides. So that's why I said the other side, or the other side. Because it's interesting. Identity is weight, but identity and body image is more than that. Like it comes with weight, because that's an easy one to talk about. And like we said, height and all of that. But it also comes, what if you're injured and can't move? And your body image now is they think I'm not athletic, which is something that, I've dealt with because I've always been able to move. And then I had an injury and I'm like, wow. So now my body image is I'm someone who doesn't move a whole lot. Like it's just going to be a constant struggle of what we think others feel or are watching when really can you just be, where you're supposed to be at that moment and be who you're supposed to be at that moment and celebrate those things. So I can see I am no expert. Like I shouldn't be sitting in this spot, but I can see the extremes on both sides for many different things than just weight.
Yeah.
And just the funniest part of all of that, of what you said, is that we're all so concerned about what other people think of us.
Yeah.
And the truth is that everyone else is thinking about themselves just as much, that no one really has time to notice that much about us.
So kind of as we conclude this episode, what's our takeaway here? Like, what's our takeaway that we want people to not miss when they listen to this episode about body image for themselves and then also for the patterns that they're creating in their house?
Goodness, a summary of, going back to Psalm 139 and truly believing that the truth is that we were knit together and that he knows every single seam and loves us more than anything. And for us to believe that as parents and to speak that into our kids, to also know that to focus on the heart means that we have to spend time focusing on what our eyes are looking at, right? That are going to guide to our heart. So and I know we touched really a little bit on social media, and I don't believe social media is the only thing that is causing this. It's interactions with humans. Good luck not having any interactions with humans. But just focusing our eyes on Jesus constantly. Just always pointing our kids' eyes to Jesus, making sure our eyes, what are we watching? What are we listening to? What are we reading? And then, with our kids, what are they watching? Who are they talking to? Are they surrounding themselves with good friends that are speaking truth and encouragement to them? And if they're not, what can I do to help that as well? And then I think us just challenging ourselves to think of how we talk. And just to know that, like what I said, with the negative, even when they're accidental, wait, didn't you just eat comments, or like the little things that are just part of our everyday lingo, to just challenge ourselves to think about it, because we want to speak encouragement. We want to speak love and light and truth. And that's something that every day we can pause and be like, shoot, I should have done that differently. But tomorrow I'm going to do it differently, right? So
that's good stuff.
Christy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. I think that this is a really important topic that we're all just growing through and trying to do our best on. We'll have good days and we'll have days that we haven't done as well. But like you said, every day is a new day to get started and to point our eyes and our kids' eyes to Jesus. This has been Parenting for the Everyday. Tune in next time.